Everyone see that tweet from AOC, or that video? What was it, last week? Said that pulling yourself up by your bootstraps is a myth. It's literally, she took a figurative statement literally to undermine a concept of, you know, pulling yourself up, producing for yourself, taking care of yourself, pursuing the American dream. All right, well, that was easy. See, pulled myself up by my bootstraps. Everyone jumped on her for that, but then she responded by saying, oh yeah, of course I worked hard and whatnot, but I'm not going to pretend like it was all me because that would be narcissistic. So AOC is so beaten down mentally that she doesn't even want to take credit and for her own accomplishments. I mean, wasn't she bragging after she pulled off the upset against Joe Crowley? She posted a picture of her shoes, like all worn down and crap, saying like, "Oh, this is all because I went around knocking on doors and I worked really hard just so I could win this nomination." And everyone applauded her. Yeah, you seem to be happy to take credit for it, then, Bolshevik Barbie. Got to credit my my man Ken Gardner with that moniker, Bolshevik Barbie. But now she's saying that's narcissistic, so which is it? It's the same, you didn't build that mentality. Well, you couldn't have done it without others. Yeah, you know, that's part of life, is working with others. I mean, someone can't get rich unless they sell it to other people in exchange for money. But they always like to reverse cause and effect, you see. Because it's ideas and it's mental productive effort and it's physical productive effort that that makes you rich, that pulls you out of poverty, makes your life better. The example I used on Twitter was Steve Jobs. Like, you could say, oh, well, Steve Jobs didn't really bring about the iPhone. You know, he just had the idea, and then he hired some engineers. I mean, people do this with Steve Jobs all the time with the founding of Apple. They say, oh, it was really Steve Wozniak who did all the heavy lifting. Steve Jobs just had the idea and the business acumen. It's like, yeah, but Steve Wozniak wouldn't have accomplished shit. I mean, he probably still would have, but not. Apple, like Steve Wozniak wouldn't have built Apple without Steve Jobs, that's for sure. And then, yeah, so, but pertaining to the iPhone, Steve Jobs had he only had the idea, but it was really the software engineers and the developers that brought the iPhone into existence, and it's all the workers in China that assemble the iPhones and send it to Germany for further assembly. So is it really Steve Jobs? He didn't build that, and he has to move it on roads in America that are paid for with taxpayer dollars. And he has to hire people, as Elizabeth Warren says, who taxpayers paid to educate. Steve Jobs, yeah, but again, Steve Jobs had to come up with the idea and the vision to bring the iPhone into existence. And I think, as Yaron Brook mentioned, one of the big issues with the iPhone was Steve Jobs says, I want this to be touchscreen. And they said, well, we can't make it affordable because the glass costs way too much if we outsource it. He's like, I guess we're going to have to make the glass ourselves then. It's that kind of balls and vision that brings the iPhone into existence. If you don't believe in Steve Jobs' value, I mean, just consider the fact that he was fired from Apple in the 80s. And they fell off a cliff over a decade. They were on the verge of bankruptcy, if I recall correctly. Bill Gates had to infuse Apple with hundreds of millions of dollars in the 90s to keep them afloat. Now, whether or not Bill Gates should have done that is a different question. And I definitely think he probably did that out of a sense of guilt and the fact that regulators were coming at him with antitrust legislation. But that doesn't change the fact that the point is that Apple was really struggling without Steve Jobs. Steve Jobs comes back. And they became the largest company in the world. What up? I like Kirk. I like me too.